Hey, so it has been a while since I have really opened up on my channel about personal struggles that I've gone through with adoption. And this is something I haven't really shied away from in the past. If you found me through my post-adoption blues video, then you know this. Or if you saw any of my adoption updates towards the beginning of our adoption process, I really try to be really open and vulnerable with you guys because I don't think it's helpful for me to come on here and just pretend to be the world's best parent or to be the world's best adoption expert, because the truth is we all fall short sometimes. We all fail. We all struggle, and I am no different than that. And so I just feel like I really need to be honest with you guys about a few things, and hopefully you'll understand. So welcome back to my channel. If this is the first time you've clicked on one of my videos, no judgment here. I am also the type of person to see a title like this and be like, I have to know what's going on. So if that's you, welcome. My name is Katie. I'm an adopted mom of 3 kids, ages 5 through 12, and I'm also an adoption consultant. And I work with families all across the country who are looking to adopt from foster care. And normally here on my channel, I share a lot of tips and tricks when it comes to adoption, some informational videos teaching you about things like home study and all of that. But today is much more personal. Today I want to share with you some really difficult struggles I've been walking through in my parenting journey and some ways I've failed, okay? Like some ways that I have not been the parent that I should have been and that I wanted to be. And so I just want to be very open and vulnerable with you today. And you know, there's a part of me that is afraid to do this now that I have an adoption consultant business, because I mean, as much as I don't want to be put up on a pedestal, because I don't deserve that, at the same time, I don't want people to not trust me to give them advice. So this is kind of, I'm taking a step out on a limb here to share. And I used to share like this, no problem. And I found that maybe in the past 6 months or so since I've opened my business, I have shied away a little bit more from these more vulnerable types of videos. And I'm just done with that. I don't want to pretend to be perfect. I love giving you guys informational content, but I also want to share with you. I want to be real with you because I truly think that you guys value that. That's what you've told me many times in the comments or through DMs. So I'm getting back to it. So bear with me today as I share some difficult things. So there are 2 main things that I want to share today. The first one is a way that I feel I've failed, and I've been reflecting on that a lot recently and mourning that. And another one is a way that I've come to a realization about my parenting that I never, ever thought of before, and I don't know why. So first of all, the way I feel I failed. So if you don't know, a couple years ago now, we got the news. Actually, this was the first night our kids were staying at our house to visit our older 2 kids. We got news that same night that my father-in-law was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, which is a really aggressive form of cancer. A lot of times people do not live past a month or 2 when they're diagnosed with that. So our kids got home and then we got that call. So it was from the beginning of the time that they moved in with us, an extremely emotionally fraught time. Adjusting to a new adoption situation is already an extremely difficult thing to do, and it comes with so many challenges. But when you add on my father-in-law walking through this and my husband and I mourning this, and also having kids who had never even met him yet and they're about to be told he's dying, was just so much stress and pressure and so much sadness. It was a really difficult time. And, you know, we were blessed to have him for basically a full year after his diagnosis, which feels weird to say I'm thankful for that because we really would be wanting way more time with him, way more years. But because that type of cancer is so aggressive, I do view it as a blessing that we got the amount of time we did. And so even though, you know, we were able to walk through that year, we're watching him suffer. We're watching him go through chemo. We're watching him fade, you know? And so it was a tough year emotionally. And because my husband is his dad, not my dad, you know, he's my father-in-law, and it was my kid's grandparent, I felt this emotional weight, and this is not anything my husband put on me. I put it on myself to be the strong one in this situation, to be the one that everyone could rely on and talk to and talk about their feelings to. And I do like to be someone who can, you know, people can share their feelings with. But at the same time, I was struggling with my own things. I have a hard time with change sometimes. And it was extremely hard adding 2 older kids to our home. And I was really struggling with my mental health in general. I think even if the stuff with my father-in-law was not going on, I would still have been struggling. So my anxiety and depression were just really getting bad. And I started doing therapy and, you know, I started doing things for it. But there has been a period of about, I want to say like at least 1.5 years where I was not the mom that I wanted to be. I was a lot more distant from my kids because when I'm stressed or when I'm upset about things, my tendency is to withdraw. Because I'm more introverted, being by myself is what gives me energy. And if I'm constantly around people, I just feel drained. But when you have kids who are adopted, they have a lot of needs and they have a lot of emotional needs. And they oftentimes, I'm going to use this word, some people might not like this, but I can't think of a better way to word it. They're more clingy than the average kid. And so there were times where like, if I walked out of my room to just go get a glass of water, I would be surrounded by my kids being like, mommy, 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 mommy. And you're like, they were happy to see me. And so I felt horrible being like, just leave me alone, you know, because they were happy to see me. That's what every mom wants. We want our kids to be happy to see us and to give us hugs and all that stuff. But I was in a space where I was struggling so much. I was just like, I don't even want to walk out of my room because I can't handle just all of the energy and emotions coming at me, even if they're positive ones. And a lot of times they weren't positive. You know, we had a lot of situations where kids were arguing with each other or hurting each other or just bossing each other around. You know, it was stressful. It was stressful. And we had a lot of trauma behaviors going on. And I was not handling it well. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. I wasn't. So, you know, I started therapy and that did help. And I was in therapy for a while and I did get some good benefits out of that. However, at some point I just realized it wasn't enough. And so I was trying to talk to more people in my life about it as well, open up with people. And throughout this process, I did slowly start to open up and I was still able to parent well. Like I still took care of my kids here. I took them to the therapy appointments they needed to. I got them to the doctor and my husband did obviously as well. We were taking care of our kids. We were giving them fun experiences. But I will say that I was very emotionally probably distant at that time. Now I say that, and I know that in some ways I wasn't. In some ways I was willing to listen and help them understand their feelings because that's something I feel like I'm good at. But I was not emotionally present in a really fun, cuddly mom way that I feel like my youngest especially needed from me. And it was really just because I was depressed. I was struggling. And recently I had a huge breakthrough. I mean, I've been in a better place now for, I would say like 7 or 8 months. I've been in a probably longer than that now. I've been in a much better place. But I feel like having this space from that really difficult time in my life has given me the ability to think through some things and to process things that I haven't processed before. And it really came to my attention recently with my daughter because with my youngest, I spent some time, I was putting her to bed. And a lot of times when I put my kids to bed, I'm like, okay, I've got to get through this, brush your teeth, get your PJs on, let's go, let's read a book really fast, let's get in bed. And I'm gonna be honest with you, sometimes I will pick a short book because I am just like ready for my alone time. And especially when I was struggling with depression and everything, that was extremely difficult for me to want to spend all that time with my kids. I'm just being honest with you. Some people might come at me for that, but it was a struggle for me, even though I loved them. And so recently my like word of the year is present, and I just really want to be more present. I've actually taken social media off of my phone and it's only on my iPad, which I pretty much never have with me. So my goal is just to be more present with my kids. And so one thing I decided one night was I'm going to just let bedtime take as long as it needs to take. I'm not going to rush it. And I'm actually going to involve some like cuddly time in it. So I put my youngest to bed and we just like cuddled for a while and talked, and I just realized how much she loved it. Like she was just so, I almost feel like she was surprised, and that broke my heart. It broke my heart. And I realized I'd just gotten into this habit of rushing through everything, because when I wasn't doing well, that's what I did. I was like, we got to get through this so I can go be alone. And I was still kind of in that mindset, even though I can handle it more now. So I've been allowing myself to do that. And after one of these nights of putting her to bed and taking our time, like I let her do my hair, you know, we did all sorts of little cute things together. I came downstairs and just sobbed to my husband about how I've just realized that I haven't been for her what she probably needed from me. And I'm not someone to blame someone who's having mental health problems, so I'm not gonna like completely blame myself. I don't think I could have done it in the way that I would like to because of what I was going through. But now that I'm in a better place and I can, I'm seeing it from my kids' perspective, and I'm just mourning what they didn't get from me. Even though they did get stuff from me, I'm mourning what they didn't get from me and what I wish I could have given them then. And so that's kind of the way that I felt like a failure. And I'm sharing this not because it's not comfortable to share, okay? It's not comfortable for me to share this. I am solely sharing this so that if you have adopted, or not, maybe you've just experienced like postpartum depression or something like that. If you have had this same experience, you're not alone. And I know I'm not alone in this. I know there are a lot of other moms who have gone through this. And I'm thankful that I've gotten to the point where I can see it from my child's perspective and have that grief. I'm thankful that I at least am in a good enough place where I'm not so consumed with my own depression, anxiety, or whatever, that I can see it from their eyes, even if it's painful for me to realize what I didn't give them or what I couldn't be at that point. But in a more positive way, this has really just confirmed to me why that word present kept coming up again and again as my word of the year. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, I'm a Christian, so I do share some things about that on my channel, and I recognize some of you aren't, and that's okay, but it is part of my story. And so this year, as I was, you know, last year I didn't even set a word of the year. I was like, no, I'm just gonna survive. Maybe survival was my year, my word of the year in 2022. But this year I had some other words in mind, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. And I kept hearing this word present, and I kept listening to things that would talk about being more present and being more available to your kids. And I was like, oh, I really don't want that to be my word of the year, because that sounds really hard. And I don't feel like God like audibly spoke to me, but I felt like God kept putting things in my path that made me realize that being present was what I needed to focus on. And I would not have had this kind of revelation, I don't think, without that, because this was very recently. So I'm just really thankful for that. As hard as that time has been, as much as I mourn that time for my kids, that I couldn't be there 100% in the way that I wanted to, in the way that they deserved, I am thankful that now I can look back and see how far we've come, and I can rebuild some of those bridges and really enjoy my kids and be present with them. That was long, but my second thing is a little bit shorter to explain. So with my oldest in particular, I have felt like a failure as a mom. I have felt, I feel that way about all my kids sometimes. I think every mom feels this way at times, but I can be really self-critical, and that's something I'm working on and all of that. But I, for the longest time, just felt like I wasn't giving her what she needed. Let me just tell you some things that I am not. I am not a super peppy person. Like, me on these videos is about as peppy as I get. It's just not my personality to be like, oh my gosh, even doing that feels so unnatural for me. I'm also not a super touchy person. Like, don't get me wrong, I like hugs. I like hugging my friends and family, but I'm not like someone who wants someone like hanging on me all day and cuddling on me all day. And it's just not my personality. And my love language is much more quality time than anything else. So I like to spend time having good conversation with people, listening to them, and that's how I show love and how I receive love. Well, when you look at my oldest daughter, her love language is probably physical touch, is one of her main ones. And so it's hard for me because when I was her age, I didn't want to like cuddle with my parents, probably because of my personality. I was like, ugh, don't touch me, you know, when I was 12 or 11, but she's not like that. And so it was hard for me because I always felt like I wasn't giving her what she really needed from me. And, you know, there were times where with all my kids where I would spend a bunch of time with them and it was never enough. You know, it was like, I call it leaky bucket syndrome, where if you fill a bucket and it has a hole, everything's just going to be pouring. As you pour it in, it's pouring right out. And so it didn't matter how much physical touch or time or words of affirmation or any of those things that I poured in, it was leaking right out. So I could spend a full day with a kid just focused on them. Like this happened one time. I spent a whole like afternoon with this child. We went shopping, we went and got drinks, we did all sorts of fun stuff. And that night they said, you never hang out with me. Nobody ever hangs out with me, because I said no to watching TV with them, because I had to catch up on the chores I missed while I was gone. And so because of those experiences, I felt like I was withdrawing, and I was really feeling like I was just failing my kids and I wasn't being the mom they needed. And to add on to that, their foster mom, previously my older kid's foster mom, extremely touchy, lovey woman, and they call her foster grandma. She is in her 80s. She has a lot of time to sit on the couch and cuddle. And she just has a personality like that. She's a huggy, lovey, loves to squeeze them and calls them little pet names. And it's really sweet. Like, I love seeing her interact with them. But that's just not my personality. And so this whole time I'm just beating myself up for not being that. And I try to be that, but I'm like telling my husband it's just not who I am to be calling people all these pet names and being all like, oh, you know, it's just not who I am. And so it was really hard for me to accept that about myself. And this whole time I just was like, okay, well, if I could be more like that, then I would be the mom that she deserves, that my kids deserve. And that's what was painful for me, is like, my kids deserve a mom who's like so excited and peppy to see them and all this stuff. But I was like, I just can't do that and be me. And so it felt impossible. And I couldn't reconcile who I was with the mom that I thought that they deserved. And then I was talking to my husband about this one night, and I was like, wait a second. I was like, you know what? I have strengths that other moms probably don't have. Like, duh. Obviously, we all have different strengths, but for some reason, for me, I was not able to see that within myself. And so I was talking to him about how, you know, I'm really comfortable with my daughter talking about her bio parents. I am fine with it. It doesn't threaten me. We can talk about it. I ask her how she feels about it. I've made it very clear that I'm willing to talk about that. When it comes to issues of race, because my kids are biracial, I'm very open to talking about that and to hearing their experiences and knowing how I can help them. And these are conversations that I'm comfortable having. I'm someone who's very comfortable listening to people talk through quote unquote negative emotions like anger or sadness or fear. I actually enjoy, that sounds weird. That sounds like I want people to be sad. That's not it. I enjoy being there for someone when they are going through stuff like that. And so I've had lots of talks with my oldest about things she's gone through, maybe traumatic events or difficult things. And I can listen to that and completely like stay cool and calm. Like, I don't get freaked out. I don't get upset. It's just, that's something I'm good at. And I think in my brain, I was like, well, probably those really peppy moms and all that stuff, obviously they're good at those things too. And they're really peppy and really fun and whatever. And then I realized, I was like, you know what? No, because like, I know some really peppy, fun people and really positive people. And something I will say is I love having them in my life because I need that. I need people to be like that around me because it doesn't come as naturally to me. And I think they balance me out well. But I will also say that something I have noticed is oftentimes people who have strengths in that, they have a weakness in being able to allow negative feelings, allow themselves to have negative feelings, allow others around them to share those. They may view it as, you're just being really negative. Let's just cheer up and talk about something fun or happy. And that's not me. And so I was like standing there talking to my husband. I'm like, oh my gosh, wait a second. Those moms who are really peppy and really excited all the time and good at all of that, they probably don't like having those types of really difficult conversations. They're probably maybe not quite as good at it. And even for me too, something I'm really good at is coming up with solutions for difficult problems. I really enjoy it. I love, you know, if I have a kid who's really struggling, getting angry all the time or something, and they're responding in anger to everything, I can come up with a system that's like a 3-step thing. We did this with one of my kids, a 3-step system of how to express their feelings, calm their bodies, and then move on and come up with a solution. And I'm really proud of myself because those things have worked, you know? I enjoy coming up with those things, and I feel like when you take difficult situations, I'm really good with those. It's the more just like being peppy and positive, and like a touchy-feely person that I have to try harder at, and that's fine. And I was just like, I have to accept the fact that I can't be everything my kids want me to be and need me to be. I'm going to try to do everything I can to show them love. Even though physical touch isn't one of my big love languages, I make an effort to, you know, rub their back or give them hugs or whatever, because I know that's how they receive love. So it's not an excuse not to do those things, but it's also an acceptance of, oh, I have other strengths, and it's okay for me to be proud of those things and to embrace that about myself. So I don't know, maybe that seems like a really duh moment to some of you guys, but you know, but for some of us who are more self-critical, this can be a big step to realize this. So if that's you and you are like me, you're very self-critical and always trying to be like the best you can be, this is your invitation to sit down and think about, what are you actually doing really well, and acknowledge that. It's okay to acknowledge it. It's okay, because ever since I had that conversation with him, I felt so empowered as a parent. And I honestly had this same conversation with my oldest daughter in a less extreme way. But I just told her, I said, you know, I wish I could be the perfect mom for you. I wish I could be the mom that you want. And I said, I've struggled with it. I have struggled nights praying and crying and wishing that I could be what I know you want me to be. And I was like, but the truth is, I can't fulfill everything for you. But I was like, I just want to let you know, like, I came to a realization of the things that I do well. And I hope that this can be an example to you of, like, if you don't feel like you're who you should be, or you don't feel like you fit the mold of what you should be, that you have strengths, and that it's good to recognize those strengths. And so it was a super positive conversation. And we just ended it talking about how, like, I can't fulfill her in every single way. I believe only God can do that. And so it just led to a really good conversation, and I'm glad I shared it with her. I think she's mature enough to handle it. And I hope that, you know, she thinks about that someday. She thinks about the fact that, oh, you know what? I remember when my mom told me, like, she wanted to be perfect, and she just realized she wasn't, and she just accepted it. Basically, those were 2 really big things I felt like I needed to share. And I always struggle with, like, what's oversharing and what's not sharing enough, because I really like to be real with you and let you know really what's going on in my situation, in my heart. And the whole reason I do this is so that you know you're not alone. Because it's easy in this adoption kind of social media world to feel like you're not doing enough. And I made a video about this a while ago, just about how I had unfollowed a lot of social media accounts when it came to adoption and foster care, quote unquote, influencers. I still follow some, but there were a lot of them that I just felt like we weren't sharing vulnerably. We weren't being honest about our struggles. And I don't want you to feel that way here. So I hope that by sharing this, that you feel seen and heard and understood. I appreciate you for listening to this and for letting me share my story. It feels good to talk about it to you. And yeah, I just really hope it helps you in some way. Anyway, that is all for this video. This is very long, guys. I'm probably gonna have to do a lot of editing of this to cut it down. But thank you for being here. I really appreciate you. I hope you're having a great day, and I will see you next week.